I found an old photograph in my attic, dated 1861, of a woman with a haunting smile. Her eyes seemed to follow me, but it was her reflection in the glass that chilled my blood. It smiled too, only later, as if it knew something I didn't. What secret was she hiding? Stick around as I unravel the mystery behind her eerie grin and the truth that made my heart race. I was rummaging through my grandmother's attic last summer, sifting through dusty boxes of forgotten relics. Among the clutter, I found an old wooden frame, its edges worn but intact. Inside was a sepia-toned photograph, dated 1861, of a woman in a high-neck dress. Her smile was soft, almost tender, but it held an unsettling edge. Her eyes, dark and piercing, seemed to lock onto mine. I couldn't shake the feeling she was watching me. The photograph was heavy in my hands, as if it carried a weight beyond its frame. I turned it over and saw faint handwriting on the back. It read, "Clara, 1861," in elegant cursive. Who was Clara, and why did her image feel so alive? I set the photo on my desk, but her gaze followed me. That night, I dreamt of her smile, looping endlessly. When I woke, the photo was still there, unchanged. Yet, something about it felt different. The next morning, I studied the photograph under sunlight, hoping for clarity. Clara's smile seemed wider now, almost mocking. I noticed a faint reflection in the glass, barely visible. It wasn't just her face. It was her smile mirrored, but delayed. The reflection's lips curved upward a split second after hers. I blinked, thinking it was a trick of the light. But every time I tilted the frame, the reflection lagged. My pulse quickened as I realized this wasn't normal. I took a photo of the photograph with my phone to compare. The digital image showed no such delay in the reflection. Yet in the physical frame, it persisted, eerie and deliberate. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Was Clara's reflection trying to tell me something? I couldn't stop staring, mesmerized yet terrified. I decided to research the photograph's origins, starting with the date, 1861. The Civil War had just begun, a time of turmoil and loss. I wondered if Clara was connected to that era's pain. I visited the local library, digging through archives of old families in my town. Hours passed, but I found no mention of a Clara from 1861. Frustrated, I returned home and picked up the photograph again. Her smile hadn't changed, but the reflection seemed sharper now. It was as if the reflection was gaining clarity while the original faded. I held the frame closer, my breath fogging the glass. For a moment, I swore the reflection's eyes moved. Not Clara's eyes, the reflection's. They darted toward me, then back. My hand shook as I set the frame down. I needed answers, but where could I turn? That night, I couldn't sleep, the photograph dominating my thoughts. I placed it face down on my desk, hoping to break its hold. But at 2 a.m., I heard a faint creak from the room. My heart pounded as I flicked on the light. The frame was upright again, Clara's smile staring at me. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't even been near it. I grabbed my phone and recorded a video, focusing on the reflection. The delay was still there, but now the reflection's smile lingered longer. It was no longer just a mirror of Clara. It felt separate, alive. I whispered her name, Clara, and the reflection's lips twitched. My stomach dropped. Was she hearing me? I needed to know more, but fear was taking over. The next day, I contacted a local historian, Dr. Ellis, who specialized in 19th century artifacts. I showed him the photograph, careful not to mention the reflection yet. He examined it closely, noting the dress and hairstyle were typical of 1861. He suggested Clara might have been from a wealthy family, given the frame's quality. I hesitated, then asked about the reflection. Dr. Ellis frowned, tilting the frame. "That's odd," he muttered, noticing the delay. He had no explanation but warned me to be cautious. "Some objects carry more than history," he said cryptically. I left his office unsettled, the photograph heavier in my bag. That night, Clara's reflection smiled wider than ever. It felt like a challenge, daring me to dig deeper. I started noticing small changes in my house after that. Doors creaked open slightly, even when locked. My phone's camera glitched when I tried to photograph Clara again. One night, I woke to find my bedroom mirror fogged up, as if someone had breathed on it. I wiped it clean, but my reflection seemed off. It mimicked me, but with a slight delay, just like Clara's. I stumbled back, heart racing, and grabbed the photograph. Clara's smile was unchanged, but the reflection's eyes were wider, almost gleeful. I began to wonder if Clara was trapped in that frame. Or worse, if something else was using her image. I needed to know who, or what, I was dealing with. Sleep became impossible. Her gaze was everywhere. I decided to trace the photograph's origins through my family. My grandmother had passed years ago, but my mother might know something. Over the phone, she recalled a story about a great-great-aunt named Clara who vanished in 1861. No one knew what happened to her, only that she was last seen smiling at a family gathering. My blood ran cold. Was this her photograph? I asked my mother to send any family records she had. Meanwhile, I kept the photograph in a drawer, hoping to contain its influence. But at night, I heard whispers, soft, unintelligible, but unmistakably feminine. The drawer rattled, as if Clara wanted out. I was starting to believe she wasn't just a memory in sepia. The family records arrived, yellowed and brittle. They mentioned Clara, a young woman known for her beauty and charm. But one entry stood out. Clara's mirror never lied. It was an odd phrase, with no explanation. I thought of the reflection in the photograph and shuddered. I pulled the frame from the drawer, half expecting it to be different. Clara's smile was the same, but the reflection's was now a full grin, showing teeth. It wasn't Clara's smile anymore. It was something else's. I dropped the frame, the glass cracking slightly. The reflection didn't flinch. It just stared. My heart raced as I realized this wasn't just a photograph. It was a window to something I couldn't yet understand. I began to research mirrors and reflections in 19th century lore. Old texts spoke of mirrors trapping souls or serving as portals. One story mentioned a woman who made a pact with an entity to stay young forever. Her reflection, however, became a separate being, growing stronger over time. Could Clara have made such a deal? I looked at the photograph again, the crack in the glass spiderwebbing across her face. The reflection smile was unaffected, gleaming through the fracture. I felt a pull, like the reflection wanted me to join it. I covered the frame with a cloth, but the whispers grew louder. "Look at me," they seemed to say. I was losing my grip on reality. Desperate, I contacted a paranormal investigator, Sarah, who agreed to examine the photograph. She arrived with tools, cameras, EMF readers, and a small mirror. She studied the photograph, her face paling as she noticed the reflection's delay. "This isn't just a photo," she whispered. "It's a tether." She placed her mirror beside it, and the reflection appeared in both, smiling, always smiling. Sarah warned me not to destroy the photograph. It might release whatever was inside. She suggested a ritual to sever the tether, but it required knowing Clara's full story. I agreed to help, though fear gnawed at me. The reflection's eyes followed us as we spoke. I wasn't sure if we were saving Clara or trapping ourselves. Sarah and I dug deeper into Clara's history, starting with local cemetery records. We found a grave marked Clara, 1861, but it was empty, no body, just a headstone. The groundskeeper said it was a memorial, erected after her disappearance. I showed him the photograph, and he flinched. "That smile," he muttered. "I've seen it in the old chapel's mirror." The chapel was abandoned, but we visited it that evening. Inside, dust coated everything, except a large, ornate mirror on the wall. I held up Clara's photograph, and her reflection appeared in the chapel's mirror, smiling, delayed, and sharper than ever. My knees buckled as the mirror's reflection winked at me. Sarah grabbed my arm, pulling me back. "We need to leave," she said. Back at my house, Sarah set up protective symbols around the photograph. She chanted softly, her voice steady but tense. The air grew heavy, and the photograph's frame vibrated. Clara's reflection didn't waver. It seemed amused. Sarah explained that the reflection might be an entity tied to Clara's soul. We needed to know why Clara vanished in 1861. I found an old diary in the family records, written by Clara's sister. It described Clara's obsession with a mirror she bought from a traveling merchant. "It shows me truths," Clara had said. The diary ended abruptly. The last entry dated the day she disappeared. The reflection's smile widened as I read aloud. I felt it watching, waiting. Sarah suggested we try communicating with the reflection directly. She set up a candlelit circle and placed the photograph in the center. "Clara, what do you want?" she asked. The room grew cold, and the candle flickered. The reflection's lips moved, mouthing words I couldn't hear. I leaned closer, my breath catching as the reflection's eyes locked onto mine. "Free me," it seemed to say. But was it Clara or something else? Sarah's EMF reader spiked, and the candle went out. In the darkness, I heard a low laugh from the photograph. Sarah grabbed my hand, urging me to stay calm. But my heart was pounding. The reflection was no longer just a delay. It was acting on its own. We decided to visit the merchant's descendants, hoping for clues about the mirror. An elderly woman, Ms. Hargrove, lived nearby and claimed her great-grandfather sold mirrors in 1861. She listened to our story, her face grim. "He sold one cursed mirror," she said. "It promised eternal beauty but stole the buyer's soul." She refused to look at the photograph, saying it felt wrong. She gave us an old journal her ancestor kept, detailing the mirror's sale to a young woman named Clara. The journal warned that destroying the mirror would trap the soul forever. I realized the photograph's frame was made from the same wood as the mirrors. The reflection's smile grew sharper, as if it knew we were close. Back home, I read the merchant's journal, my hands trembling. It described the mirror as a prison for an entity that fed on vanity. Clara had been its last victim, her soul trapped in the reflection. The photograph, made from the mirror's frame, was an extension of that prison. I looked at Clara's image, her smile now a faint echo of the reflection's grin. I felt a pull, like the reflection wanted me to take Clara's place. Sarah suggested a ritual to break the entity's hold, but it required facing the reflection head-on. I was terrified but agreed. We set up the photograph and a new mirror, ready to confront whatever was inside. The reflection's eyes gleamed, daring me to try. The ritual began at midnight, under Sarah's guidance. She chanted in Latin, her voice echoing in the quiet room. I held the photograph, my eyes fixed on the reflection. It smiled wider, its teeth unnaturally sharp. The air grew thick, and my skin prickled. Sarah sprinkled salt around the photograph, forming a protective circle. The reflection's smile faltered, then returned, more menacing. I felt a tug at my chest, like something was pulling me toward the frame. "Stay strong," Sarah whispered. I focused on Clara's face, not the reflection's. I spoke her name, begging her to fight. The reflection's eyes narrowed, and the room shook. I didn't know if we were winning or losing. The shaking stopped, but the reflection's smile grew wider. Sarah's chants grew louder, more urgent. I felt a cold breath on my neck, though no one was behind me. The photograph's frame cracked further, and the reflection's image flickered. For a moment, I saw Clara's real face, terrified, pleading. "Help me," she mouthed, before the reflection took over again. Sarah handed me a silver cross, saying it might weaken the entity. I pressed it against the photograph, and the reflection hissed. The room spun, and I felt dizzy, but I held on. The reflection's smile was no longer amused, it was angry. We were close, but the entity wasn't giving up easily. I prayed we could save Clara before it was too late. Sarah told me we needed to destroy the photograph's connection to the mirror. She found a passage in the merchant's journal about breaking the curse. It required burning the frame while reciting a specific chant. We hesitated. Burning it might trap Clara forever, but the reflection's power was growing. My mirrors at home now showed delayed reflections too. I agreed to try, though fear gripped me. We built a small fire in my backyard, placing the photograph in a metal tray. Sarah began the chant, and I lit the match. The reflection's smile twisted into a snarl as the flames touched the frame. Clara's image flickered, her eyes wide with panic. I whispered an apology, hoping she'd understand. The flames consumed the frame, and the reflection screamed, a sound that echoed in my skull. Clara's image faded, replaced by a dark, shapeless form in the reflection. It lunged toward me, but the salt circle held it back. Sarah's chant grew louder, and the fire roared. The photograph curled and blackened, but the reflection fought to stay. I felt a pull, like my own reflection was being dragged into the frame. Sarah grabbed my arm, grounding me. The dark form in the reflection began to dissolve, but Clara's face appeared one last time. "Thank you," she mouthed, before the photograph turned to ash. The air stilled, and the mirrors in my house returned to normal. Exhausted, Sarah and I sat in silence, the ashes of the photograph at our feet. I felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. Had we saved Clara, or condemned her? The mirrors no longer showed delayed reflections, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered. Sarah packed her tools, saying the entity was gone, but I wasn't so sure. That night, I dreamt of Clara's smile, soft and sad. She stood in a field, free, but her eyes held a warning. When I woke, my bedroom mirror was fogged again. I wiped it clean, and my reflection was normal. But for a split second, I swore I saw Clara's face behind mine, smiling. I haven't touched a mirror since. Block 3. Days passed, and I tried to move on, but Clara's story haunted me. I researched more about cursed objects, hoping to understand what happened. Old texts mentioned entities that thrived on fear and attention. Had I fed the reflection by obsessing over it? I avoided mirrors, covering them with cloth. But at night, I heard faint whispers, too soft to make out. I told myself it was my imagination, but doubt lingered. I visited Clara's grave again, leaving flowers as an apology. The air felt heavy, like she was still watching. I wondered if the entity had truly left, or if it was waiting for another chance. My house felt different now, too quiet. I kept the lights on at night, just in case. Sarah called to check on me, her voice tense. She'd found another reference to the mirror in an old occult book. It suggested the entity could fragment, leaving pieces of itself behind. My stomach sank. Had we only weakened it? I checked my mirrors again, but they were normal. Still, I felt watched, especially at night. I started sleeping with a cross under my pillow, a habit I couldn't shake. One evening, I found a small crack in my bedroom mirror. It wasn't there before. I covered it immediately, my heart racing. The whispers grew louder that night, almost forming words. I didn't dare listen too closely. I decided to sell my house, hoping a fresh start would end this nightmare. As I packed, I found an old locket in a drawer, one I'd never seen before. Inside was a tiny portrait of Clara, smiling. My blood ran cold. I hadn't kept any mementos of the photograph, so where did this come from? The locket's reflection showed Clara's smile, delayed again. I dropped it, my hand shaking. I called Sarah, who told me to bring it to her immediately. On the drive, I felt a weight in the car, like someone was sitting behind me. I didn't look in the rearview mirror. The locket seemed to hum softly, alive with something I couldn't explain. Sarah examined the locket, her face pale. "It's another tether," she said. The entity hadn't been destroyed. It had moved. We repeated the ritual, burning the locket in a salt circle. The flames hissed, and the locket's portrait melted, but Clara's smile lingered in the fire. This time, no dark form appeared, but I felt a chill as the ashes settled. Sarah assured me it was over, but her eyes betrayed doubt. I drove home, checking my mirrors obsessively. They were normal, but I didn't trust them. I started avoiding reflective surfaces altogether, even my phone screen. The whispers stopped, but the silence was worse. I felt like I was being watched always. Months later, I moved to a new city, leaving the house and its memories behind. I avoided antiques, especially photographs. But one day, at a flea market, I saw a mirror with a familiar wooden frame. My heart stopped. I walked away, refusing to look closer. That night, I dreamt of Clara again, her smile soft but sad. She stood in a mirror, waving, as if saying goodbye. I woke in a cold sweat, my new apartment's mirror uncovered. I swore I'd covered it before bed. My reflection was normal, but I didn't trust it. I smashed the mirror, just to be safe. The shards reflected nothing unusual, but I wasn't convinced. I started therapy, hoping to make sense of my fear. My therapist called it PTSD, triggered by the photograph. I didn't tell her about the reflection or the entity. It sounded too crazy, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Clara was still with me. I stopped using mirrors entirely, brushing my teeth in the dark. Friends noticed my paranoia, but didn't push. One night, I found a small note in my pocket, written in elegant cursive. "Thank you." It wasn't my handwriting. I burned it, my hands trembling. The air felt lighter afterward, but I wasn't sure why. Clara's story was over, I told myself. But was it? I began writing about my experience, hoping to process it. The words flowed easily, but they felt like Clara's, not mine. I described her smile, her eyes, the reflection's eerie delay. As I wrote, my laptop screen flickered, showing a faint image of Clara's face. I slammed it shut, my heart pounding. I stopped writing for weeks, afraid of what I'd summon. But the story pulled me back, demanding to be told. I finished it in a rush, my fingers shaking. When I reread it, the words felt alive, like they weren't entirely mine. I saved the file and deleted it, just in case. But I kept a printed copy, hidden away. A year later, I visited Clara's grave one last time. The headstone was weathered, but her name was clear. I left a single rose and whispered, "I hope you're free." The air was still, no whispers or chills. I felt a strange peace, like Clara had finally moved on. But as I walked away, I glanced at a nearby pond. Its surface reflected the sky, and for a moment, I saw her smile. It wasn't delayed this time. It was just Clara, serene and whole. I blinked, and it was gone. I haven't seen her since, but I don't trust reflections anymore. They hold too many secrets. Now, I live a quiet life, far from mirrors and old photographs. I've learned to avoid anything that feels too heavy, too alive. But sometimes, late at night, I feel a faint pull, like something's watching. I keep my home bright, no shadows for reflections to hide in. I don't talk about Clara anymore. People wouldn't believe me. But I know what I saw, what I felt. Her smile is burned into my memory, a reminder of the line between our world and another. I hope she's at peace, but I'll never be sure. The reflection taught me that some truths are better left unseen. I'm careful now, always watching for smiles that linger too long. If you've followed Clara's story, you know how it's changed me. I don't look at old photographs the same way, and mirrors feel like doorways I'll never cross. This experience has shown me there's more to our world than we understand. I'm sharing this to warn you. Be careful what you bring into your home. Some objects carry stories that don't belong to us. If you've ever found something that feels wrong, trust your gut. Clara's smile taught me that. I'm still searching for answers, and I'd love for you to join me. Hit that subscribe button to stay with me as I uncover more mysteries. Who knows what we'll find next? If this story sent chills down your spine, don't miss out on more tales of the unexplained. Subscribe to my channel for weekly dives into mysteries that keep you up at night. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload. Let's uncover the secrets together. Subscribe now.